Inspiration.com.
The 80s was a great time for action movies. Was really the time. You know, you can make an argument about Fast and the Furious now. And the 80s, man, that's when action movies were at their peak. The Rambo movies, Terminator, Commando, Cobra, back when you had Schwarzenegger, Stallone, Chuck Norris, Dolph Lundgren, early Van Damme. Van Damme's heyday was more in the 90s, but that's when these guys were really all in their prime. And as the 90s entered, things didn't hold up as well. The guys really started to not show their age. They were still, you know, specimens to behold. But really at that point they were making, you could get an actor, like a Oscar winner or something, and train him, get him into shape, put him in front of the camera, and he could give you a lot more than some of these guys could. So the 90s really saw the action genre, the way it had been in the 80s, big muscles, big hair, kind of vanish. Though there were a few last gasps, one of which was Cliffhanger. This is my, it's interesting, not a combo pack that I created. I actually did buy this off of Amazon. The fully loaded 4-movie action pack with The Sixth Day with Arnold Schwarzenegger, Cliffhanger with Stallone, The Cutter with Chuck Norris, which I'd never even heard of, and Striking Distance with Bruce Willis, all on 2 discs, and not the flip side discs either. I mean, this is the sort of discs where you pop it in, there's no menu for the movies, you just choose one or the other and hit play. Cliffhanger's a pretty good movie. It's a pretty good movie. It's actually the reason I bought the 4-pack. You could buy Cliffhanger individually, but I thought, well, even if the other... I had seen The Sixth Day in the theaters, don't remember it. Never seen Striking Distance, never gave a shit about Chuck Norris, particularly. But I thought, you know what? 3 other movies. Let's buy the 4-pack. Let's get that. I still haven't watched any of them. I've watched Cliffhanger twice. I've had this for like 2 years. Never watched any of the other movies. Someday. Cliffhanger, Stallone, hanging off of a mountain, saving people. Or not. It's a good movie. It's not a great movie. It's actually one of the few movies, especially like an action movie starring Stallone, where I would say this could have been PG-13. Some of the violence in it, only a couple of scenes of particular gore, which could have easily been trimmed down, and I don't think it would have harmed the movie. Some F-bombs that didn't need to be there particularly. Not complaining, not saying, oh, it should have been PG-13, would have been better. It's fine as an R-rated movie. I'm just saying it didn't have to be. Sometimes you get that. Sometimes you get a movie where you're just like, oh, they just sort of threw that in to appeal to an older audience, maybe, but it didn't have to be there. So Stallone plays a rescue guy who works for the park rangers, and he, you know, people go and they go hiking up in the mountains, and he goes and he saves them if they get stuck. He has a tragic accident with a friend's girlfriend. You know, they get stuck up on a mountain. He goes up there to save them, and she dies. And The movie, it's actually a great scene. I mean, I watched it with my daughter not that long ago, and she actually gasped. When you start to see the sort of harness start to slip. It's interesting in that they throw a group of robbers into the mix, led by John Lithgow with a British accent. It's weird, man. You see a fight scene with Stallone versus John Lithgow, you're not expecting that. They ripped off the Treasury Department, plane crashes, all good stuff. Very exciting scenes. But the villains are not interesting. Even John Lithgow, not interesting at all. John Lithgow is doing his best Hans Gruber, but it's not working. They lose their money, and they've got to get Stallone to help them find it, because they've lost the money up in the mountains, and they need guides to help them find it. And so it's now Stallone versus these guys. He gets away from them, they're chasing him down. There's some exciting stuff, but only when you know that they're really kind of on a mountain. There's a lot of stuff where you go, they're on a soundstage, or that is a green screen. And it absolutely loses its sense of danger in that moment. Some of the effects are seamless. I don't think Stallone was really hanging off of that cord in the beginning of the movie. But they incorporate it with somebody who was. And so it works. You get the sense of danger and everything. And then you get a lot of wonky 90s green screen effects. Action movies such as this, again, you felt it. You felt that shift. It's like it really was Die Hard, I think, that cracked it. Die Hard, Bruce Willis comes in. He doesn't have the big muscles. He doesn't have the hair. He didn't barely have any hair. And it was like Die Hard perfected it. And after that, it was time to move on. And the 90s was a rough time for those guys. They really, a lot of them found themselves out of work. The lesser guys couldn't get anything. And you get the Steven Seagals and the Van Dams in the sort of cheapo movies, and they still go to theaters. They weren't yet just going straight to VHS, but you could sense this is not like not class. I don't know if classy is the right word for a movie like Commando or Cobra. This is not something that a studio really invested in and thought, this is going to be huge. You could see they're sort of like, let's put some money into this, put it out in the theaters, it'll have a good opening weekend, and then it'll disappear. And that's what happened to a lot of these movies in the 90s. Cliffhanger did fairly well, but it's not remembered the way that Rambo and a lot of those other movies are. In fact, I watched Oliver Harper's fantastic documentary, In Search of the Last Action Hero. I'd like to remind people that Oliver was a member of, is technically still a member of Manic Expression. Has a profile. Actually, even did the narration for our documentary Creative Chaos. So it's fantastic to see him kind of hitting it big, making these big documentaries, getting to interview. I'd like to think we had something to do with it. A little bit. But, this movie, this huge documentary that Oliver Harper did doesn't even mention Cliffhanger. And so you could really tell, I don't think he cut it out or said, it's not worth it. I honestly think he might have just forgotten about it. So it's not remembered the way that a lot of Stallone movies are. But it's good fun. It's good fun. It's the kind of thing that you pop in every 5-10 years. You go, oh yeah, this is a good movie. But if it wasn't, like, I think I bought this for like $5. I'm gonna give Cliffhanger, let's go 2.5 out of 5. Let's just right down the middle. There are better Stallone movies, but this is pretty good.
Their worlds. Sort of gave myself the challenge of, okay,